Get ready to hear the truth about America on a show that's not immune to the facts with your host, Dan Bongino.
All right, welcome to the Dan Bongino Show. Producer Joe, how are you today?
Man, I'm doing good. It's a new year. Haven't had a chance to screw anything up yet.
Yeah, not yet. There's still time. 363 days left, so we're good to go. Yeah, we'll mess something up. Don't worry about it, folks. We got you there. We got you covered. Hey, I got a pretty stacked show today. I'm pretty excited about today's show. Put a lot of work into today's show because there were a lot of good stories. And I read a tremendous, fantastic, excellent piece. I can't use enough adjectives to describe how wonderful it is by Victor Davis Hanson in the show notes today that I strongly encourage you to read. As always, if you go to my website, the show notes are there and the podcast link right there. And if you subscribe to my email list, I'll email them to you. But it is really wonderful describing what he calls the political class mediocracy. No, not the meritocracy. I didn't get that wrong. The mediocrity. What an awesome piece. I'm going to go through it, so don't go anywhere. Let's get right to it. Yeah, it's great. You know Victor Davis Hanson, he's terrific. And he's got that voice. He disarms you. Hey, Joseph, it's good to be on the show. Good to see you today, man. And he just puts you at ease, and then he just melts you with logic. He's so good. So I got that and a lot more. Don't go anywhere. All right. So this Victor Davis Hanson piece, sorry to tease it endlessly, but there was some other important stuff to get to. So he writes this piece, which is just stunningly good, astonishingly good. I read it and I just lapped up every word like a dog, a thirsty dog drinking water out of a dish. He talks about the mediocrity, how the Trump election was a large-scale rebuttal to decades of being told about the D.C. meritocracy, how D.C. was full of people of merit, Joe, and they're the smartest among us, and this is the benighted class, and these are the intellectual elites. Yes. Surely they know better than you. You know, I always think back, speaking of Thomas Sowell, to tie it into how we got into this. Sowell wrote a book, one of my favorite books ever. I can't promote this book enough. The Vision of the Anointed. And in Sowell's book, he talks about this very thing, the self-anointed class of self-anointed DC geniuses, how they're supposed to be so much smarter than you, and that their very reasoning for governing is flawed. The reason for governing, and they declare themselves the anointed ones, is they believe you're too stupid because of your human flaws to govern yourself. So the anointed ones throughout history have felt the need to benight themselves, the anointed class, but never realizing the logical fallacy in that. That if human beings are too mistake-prone to govern over themselves, why would other human beings govern over other people? That was the whole brilliant idea of our Constitution, to limit the power of flawed human beings to govern over other flawed human beings. Right? Federalist 51, if men were angels. We're not. It's not a meritocracy. And Victor Davis Hanson calls it the mediocrity. And he says, and this is a great line, Joe, that the mediocrity, meaning they're mediocre. These are mediocre, plain Jane, many of them, folks, in the governing class, who have anointed themselves these intellectual elites. But, Joe, they're living off the reputations of prior generations of greatness. Now, this is something you and I have discussed many times before.
Yes, sir.
I call it the Valley Forge generation. These were, to steal a Braveheart line, still my favorite, the warrior poets, right? The people who could write the Federalist Papers and then get together a standing army in a near record amount of time to fight back the largest, most powerful army in the world, leading in a military upset for the ages in the American Revolution. Beat back the British again in 1812, survive a civil war, fight World War I and World War II, get through the Great Depression. I mean, these were people had to make hard men having to make hard decisions. Yet the mediocrity can't make any decisions. They can't open up the government. They can't figure out what the government does. They can't figure out a way to operate the government without bankrupting every American. They can't figure out how to, for 5 minutes, stop sniping at each other. They can't figure out how to stop talking down to Americans. They can't figure out that Americans are a little bit tired of being the world's entire global police force. These are a generation, the mediocrity of government bureaucrats and swamp rats, that believe that rather than, a man making a title worth something, this is a generation that believes that a title makes a man worth something. Think about that. They think the nice plaque in their office, Representative Joseph Armacost, Senator Dan Bongino, they believe the plaque in their office somehow has anointed them with special Wonder Twins powers, that has anointed them with Kal-El type super laser vision in their eyes, the ability to, breathe on something and create an ice storm like X-Men mutants. They have titanium spines or an adamantium spines like a Wolverine, right? These are think about that, right? They believe that the title makes them men, not that a man makes a title worth something. There's a big difference there, because the titles didn't matter as much in the infancy of our country to these great leaders we had. I mean, it's almost become cliche to go back and talk about George Washington, but think about it. George Washington, there were no term limits. George Washington relinquished his power after 2 terms. Washington, he didn't have to. There were no term limits, folks. That was not in the Constitution during the Washington, our first president. It was that King George said, if this is true, he's the greatest man that ever lived. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. These were men who made their title worth something. This generation now is full of worthless swamp rats who believe their title makes them worth something. Now, Hanson goes on in this wonderful, wonderful piece to list out all the things, the mediocracy. I love this line, the media. I can't get enough of this. I'm sorry to keep. It's so terrific. It so describes the diseased swamp. I can't think of a better word. All the things the mediocrity, Joe, has been wrong about. He talks about how remember what we were told a couple of years ago during the Obama presidency, Joe?
Yeah.
With the tail end of it. By Larry Summers and really smart economists. And by the way, I'm using the dreaded air quotes for really smart economists. We were told that sub 3% growth was the new normal.
Oh,
this was the new normal. Me and you had talked about this a lot on the show. The new normal, Joe. No, we were never going to reach 3% again. Everything that could be invented had been invented.
Yeah.
We were in an era of permanent stagnation. Remember Obama? When's he going to find a job? When's Trump going to bring back the job? What's he going to do? How Trump going to bring back them jobs? We're down to 3%. Remember Obama and that thing? You can't bring back those jobs. Those jobs are gone. What's Trump talking about? No dice, Mr. President. First year in office, President Trump hits 3% growth. 3%. The first year. Yep. It didn't even take a long time. The first year. So, again, the mediocrity was these are the smart folks, keep in mind. These are the, quote, smart people. This is the new normal, you American idiots. It's not me talking. It's them talking.
It's true.
It's the new normal. You guys are all morons.
It's true.
3% growth, no good, no dice. The first year he hits it. These are the smartest economists on the planet. You all were too stupid, apparently, to figure it out. The problem is, they were too stupid to figure it out. We were just fine. The mediocrity, the swamp, men who believe their titles give them power. They lend nothing at all to the title. As a matter of fact, they diminish it. Politicians are some of the least respected people in America now. I guarantee you that probably wasn't an issue with George Washington. Just saying. What else was the mediocrity wrong about? Well, I covered a little bit this week, so I don't want to rehash it. But if you listen to the shows earlier, the Paris Climate Accords. Matt Palumbo has a terrific piece up on my website debunking the hysterical liberal nonsense. When Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords about carbon reductions, it was over. Liberals were calling it the end of the world, the apocalypse. It was over. Except for the fact that the United States, despite pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, is still leading the world in carbon emission reductions. Folks, listen to me. Make no mistake. They were wrong. They weren't wrong, asterisk. They weren't wrong, but they were just wrong. Because they're wrong about everything, liberals.
You're a loser.
I love that. What else were they wrong about? The Iran deal. We were told about the Iran deal over and over. Oh, we have to deal with the Iranians. We have to deal with the Iranians. If we don't deal with the Iranians, they're on the road to a nuclear device. They were on the road to a nuclear device anyway. Yeah. They didn't give a crap. They were still building ballistic missiles. They were already working on their nuclear program. But all the smart people in the foreign policy establishment, oh, you talking heads who don't have all the experience in academia we have, you're all idiots. Although they chant death to America, they don't really mean it. You all are too stupid to figure it out. Okay. They were wrong about China. Just want to throw in one of my own. They were wrong about net neutrality, but we talked about that earlier in the week if you listen to the show, too. The liberals were wrong about that, too, and the intelligentsia. The internet's going to get shut down. The government needs to regulate it. Wrong on that. They were wrong on China. China's ascendant, Joe. China's going to eventually take down the United States. Listen to me. It is not. China is one large Potemkin village, okay? No centrally planned economy will ever beat and take back the United States. We have our problems. We have a massive national debt load. I don't want to make everything out to be peaches and cream. It most certainly isn't. But ladies and gentlemen, China, there's some good news out of China, but I'm telling you the long-term forecast for China is probably only a little bit better than the long-term forecast was for the Soviet Union. You cannot centrally plan an economy, control capital flows, control your monetary exchange rates, control your people through this social scoring system, and expect a free market economy to flourish. They're not symbiotic. They're parasitic, the Chinese government. There is absolutely zero chance China is going to overtake the United States, even with its significant population advantage. None. Don't give me purchasing power parity and all this other statistics I get. I'm talking about documented raw GDP. I mean raw what we produce. I mean trucks. I mean phones. I mean computers. I mean medical equipment, medicine, movies, lawyers, doctors, steaks, cows, computer screens, paper, Focusrites, microphones, telephones, picture frames, cameras, TVs. We produce it. We produce stuff. $21 trillion a year of stuff we produce because we work, because we got dirt under our fingernails, and the American worker is busts his balls every day getting to work with his work boots on to get done. China, I don't care they have 3 times as many people. They will never take down this economy. That is an elitist, mediocracy, crap, diseased, swamp rat talking point. It is not going to happen. Despite 8 years of Obama, a crappy swamp rat group of GOP spineless punks, I'm serious, a lot of them, not all of them, the American worker still has a relatively free economy to flourish in. You will succeed in this country if you get an education, go to school, and work hard. I'm telling you, there is nobody sitting on this street right now, homeless, no one who has stayed away from drugs, stayed away from alcohol, lived a clean life, worked hard, and got an education. None. There is nobody. If you are by choice. America is the land of opportunity. It is a light. It is in a thick, unseeable fog. It is that beacon to the shore. The Chinese don't have that. They monitor their citizens. They have political prisoners. They have a controlled economy by you think we have a mediocrity, by an even worse mediocrity over there. Some of those Chinese bureaucrats have never even made $1 in private business. At least some of our swamp rat mediocrats have actually made some money in the past. They are wrong. They will never take us down. Reminds me of Reagan with the Soviet Union at Reykjavik when he told Gorbachev about SDI. He wanted him to give up this, what they called Star Wars. It was not Star Wars. It was SDI. And Reagan told him to go pound sand because Reagan knew he held the ace up his sleeve. And the ace was the U.S. economy. He looked Gorbachev in the eye and said, we will outspend you. You cannot win. Look at me. Look at me. Look me in the eye. You cannot win. And Gorbachev knew it. And so does President Xi. They cannot win. They cannot win a military conflict with us. They cannot win an economic conflict with us. And I'm tired of being told by the mediocrats that they can. I am a free trader. I always have been. I always have been. I get a lot of nasty emails from people who believe in tariffs. I get it. But I will say this. I understand what he's doing right now with China, President Trump. And he is the only, although we've been told by mediocrats and mediocrity forever, what a bad idea it was. He has finally got the Chinese to the table to potentially acquiesce, to stop stealing our stuff. They will not beat us. The mediocrity is wrong. In his piece, he also talks, so just to sum up where we are, he talks about the mediocrity living off the reputations of prior generations of great leaders. These aren't them. These are not them. He tells us what they've been wrong about. He then goes on to talk about their gross, their hypocrisy of the elite class and how it's considered gauche to call them out on it. We shouldn't call out Al Gore. Al Gore needs to fly around the country in a private jet to evangelize about the emissions from private jets. Wait, what? Why does he need to do that? Why can't Al Gore fly commercial? Because he's Al Gore. He's an evangelist for climate science. Victor Davis Hanson says, no, we're not going to take that. We're going to call you idiots out at every opportunity. Obama and all his Democrats, walls don't work. Why do you have a wall around your house? I thought they don't work. Well, they work for me. They just don't work for you idiots. That's Obama. Yeah. No, walls work fine for me when I was at the White House. I had a nice spiked fence at the White House. But no, they don't work for you idiots. That's kind of hypocritical. No, it's not hypocritical. Remember, this is the mediocrity. They're all smarter than you, folks. They're not. They're not smarter than you. They're dumber than you. I said to my daughter the other day, I've never been the smartest guy in the room. Never. I mean that. You give me a room of 100 people. I'm not selling myself short. I'm not trying to be like humble brag. I'm a reasonably smart guy. I've got some decent education and scored well on tests, whatever. But I've never been the smartest guy in the room. Unless it's a room of like 2 people. Like me and my maybe one of my neighbors. That's it. I love my neighbors. They're good people. If it's a room full of people, I'm telling you, I'm not the smartest guy. But I told my daughter, I've always been a hustler. And I've always been eager to learn. And there is a difference between what I guess people would call street smarts and book smarts. There is a difference between telling someone how to shoot a three-pointer and actually shooting it. Some of the finest athletes in the world have made the most miserable coaches ever. You know why? It came easy to them. They can't describe to you how to shoot a three-pointer because they were born knowing how to do it.
Knowledge ain't knowing, babe.
Knowledge, yes. I was tweeting yesterday about Wade Boggs, the old third baseman for the Red Sox and the Yankees. I even though I was a Yankees fan growing up, I just adored. One of the greatest contact hitters of my generation. A guy who, let's be candid, him and Don Mattingly, my favorite player of all time. Both of these guys were not born with immense physical skills. They weren't. They weren't born with, Bo Jackson-like abilities. But they hustled. They led the endless hours in the batting cage, on the batting tee, playing soft toss drills, one-handed swings, weightlifting, running. They hustled. And in that hustling, I'll never forget that 1986 race for the batting title between these two champions of their time. My most fond sports memory. Yesterday I thought about it. I tweeted to Boggs about it because it was just such a powerful memory of my childhood. 2 hustlers hustled. And in that hustle, every time to be better, they had to learn little tricks because they did not have that, 400-foot home run power. They weren't born with the muscle type to hit a 500-foot home run. They weren't born with 4.2 40-yard dash speed. They weren't born with 200 pounds of muscle. So they had to learn the tricks. You know what the tricks are? The tricks are hard work. We have to, and I'm not saying people aren't gifted with their chest. A lot of them do work. Michael Jordan was known as Jordan, who was unquestionably physically gifted, was known, he had both. Jordan was a phenomenal, his work ethic was unparalleled at the time. And he also was born with the physical gifts. Boggs and Mattingly, not they were talented. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to act like they were born like lumps of clay, but they didn't have the Bo Jackson gifts. But they hustled, and in that hustle, you learn the tricks. You learn the tricks. Reminds me of Craig Jeffries. He was an old Mets player. He taught himself how to juggle because he thought it would improve his hand-eye coordination. You know what? It did. That may be a trick he taught thousands of other players in his lifetime who made them better. Politicians don't have that. The mediocrity class, the Al Gore silver spoon babies, they don't have any of this. Obama's only job was as a community organizer. Guy I ran against in Maryland, Ben Card, nice guy, never's had a job outside of politics. They don't know how to hustle. They don't know the trick to mop the floor faster. They never had to get a mop. I had to get a mop. I had to clean the floors in Key Food. And you know what? You figure out a way to empty that bucket quick. Don't lift it this way. You'll spill it on the floor. You'll be cleaning it up. You'll be there all night. Joe, you mopped a few floors yourself, right?
I sure did, yeah.
You listen, mop, that's easy. No. You got to learn how to mop.
That's right.
You'll be there all night the first few times. How do I empty this bucket? Remember the big yellow buckets, folks? Had the two uncomfortable steel handles that if you picked it up the wrong way would pinch your skin?
Oh, yes.
Now, you know how I know that? Because I did it. I got a mop. I mopped the damn floor. These politicians ain't mop no damn floors. They ain't mop squat. Get the mop. Pick up the damn mop. You'll figure it out. Do I go back and forth? Do I go forward and back? What's quicker? And then you do a crap job. John from Key Food, the boss, be like, go mop that thing again. Now you're on your own time. You better figure out how to mop. They don't know how to mop. They ain't mop squat. Hanson calls the mediocrity out for the hypocrites they are. Well, you don't want to fly commercial, Al Gore? Then shut the hell up about anyone else flying private. You forfeited your moral authority. You have the Nomiki Kantz. Remember her on Tucker? Individual decisions don't matter. They don't? What do you think collectively decisions are? They're all in, what are we talking about, Martians? Of course individual decisions matter. It's individual decisions to do things that lead to these collective problems the liberals tell us are problems. If the liberals would all bandy together and donate extra money to the government for these social programs, we wouldn't be in debt. But no, individual decisions don't matter. They do matter. Why do people make individual decisions that benefit them? Because that's what human beings do. Let's go back to the beginning of the show and tie it in. People make decisions based on their individual self-interest. That's why we have a governing body that limits what individuals interested in their own self-interest can do to you.
Bingo!
That's why we have a Bill of Rights, which says what the government can't do to you. Can't abridge your right to bear arms. Can't take away your right to assemble, to petition the government, to speech, to religion. That's why the Bill of Rights was written that way. It doesn't empower the government. It empowers you. Because they knew the government was composed of individuals. Individual choices, in contrast to liberal Nomiki Kantz, do matter. And individuals will act in their self-interest, which, Joe, is not yours a good swath of the time. That's why the government limits what individuals can do to you. And that's why individual decisions like Al Gore and his private jets, Barack Obama and his walls, and Nancy Pelosi, now you see why I opened up the show this way? Nancy Pelosi going to a $10,000 a night villa in Hawaii or wherever while the government shut down and she's pretending to give a crap does matter. It matters because it doesn't matter to Nancy Pelosi at all. She doesn't care about the government shutdown or you in the federal government. Nancy Pelosi cares about one thing. And you know what that is? Nancy Pelosi. Call them out, these hypocritical elites. Everywhere, at every turn, all the time. Individual choices don't matter. You're darn right they do. They do matter. Individuals will act in their own self-interest. That's why we stopped them from imposing a carbon tax on all of us. Finally, he wraps up the piece with two more points. He addresses what the mediocrity is, living off the reputation of prior generations, what they were wrong about, how the elites who claim to be the meritocracy but are really the mediocrity are really a bunch of hypocrites. Gore, Pelosi, Obama with his walls, elites with their private school education while they fight against school choice for the rest of us. But he also talks about the difference with Trump. How Trump doesn't paint himself as one of these elites. He doesn't talk like one of them. He certainly doesn't act like one of them, and he doesn't care for a lot of them. And how he's been subjected because he refuses to join the club and take that bribe. Reminds me of that movie Serpico, that some of the cops back in the 70s in New York wanted you to take a bribe with them, according to, the movie. And, there's always a bit of movie drama, of course. But, because then you were bought in too.
Right.
You couldn't rat them out, so to say. The swamp wants this too. The swamp needs you to buy in. Trump doesn't care. Big, double-barreled, middle finger, not interested. So what happened? Hanson writes about an unprecedented effort to take down this president. Invokings of the 25th Amendment. In other words, Trump is mentally unqualified to be president, should be removed. What? Are you crazy? The electoral college coup they tried to pull during the transition. Remember that one, Joe?
Yeah.
Trying to get electors
Oh, man.
to not elect Donald Trump after he won the election. Right. The emoluments clause nonsense about Trump Tower. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. The Mueller probe. Can't forget that one. The DOJ, FBI, foreign intelligence, CIA, surrogates, and people involved with these agencies engaged in an unprecedented Spygate operation to take this president down. Why? Because the mediocrity does not want a challenge to its mediocre nature. No. No. Finally, he wraps up this manifesto, this wonderful piece, by saying, hey, are their arguments even valid? In order to assume that Trump is a danger and the mediocrity is right, he says, let's analyze their arguments, Joe. Okay. So he breaks it down three ways. He says, one, is there a legal and popular basis to remove Donald Trump right now? And is the mediocrity right? He says, no. There has been no evidence of crime or serious high crimes and misdemeanors by Donald Trump at all. Not only that, forgetting the legal basis, he says on a popular basis, front Joe, Donald Trump's poll numbers are basically right where Clinton, Bush, and Obama were at this time in their presidency. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump did better than Obama and Clinton in their own first midterms. Mm-hmm. It was not a good midterm. He doesn't try to put lipstick on it. We lost the House, but didn't lose anywhere close to the numbers that Clinton and Obama lost in some of their midterms. So there's absolutely no legal or popular basis to get rid of this president by the mediocrity. He addresses the second question. Has Trump failed? Is there a reason the mediocrity should be angry? Is Trump such a failure? He's so dangerous. GDP is at 3%, despite the mediocrity telling us it didn't happen. The economy's at record low unemployment. Deregulation is proceeding off at a wonderful rate, freeing up businesses to invest their capital. We've had tremendous constitutional conservatives appointed to the courts. We finally seem to have some control over endless wars and the deployment of foreign forces and it becoming a de facto world police force. We finally have some kind of a vision to when these people need to be drawn down, our American patriots coming back home. What has he failed at? He failed at Twitter. That's the best you've got. Anything else? Now, Hanson's clear. He says, listen, I'm not going to apologize for any of his personal, but that's whatever. But your argument that he's failed is absurd. It's beyond stupid. If Trump failed, Obama was a catastrophic failure. Catastrophic failure. Obama couldn't even meet Trump's metrics on the economy and laughed at them when they were even stated. How are they going to bring those jobs back? Remember that? The way he did it, by cutting taxes and deregulating. Thank you. Thank you. Next. Like that Ariana Grande song my daughter plays 6,000 times a day. That's right. I got to hear it all day. I love my daughter. She's a good singer. My daughter can really sing. Seriously. Third, What's the antithesis to Trumpism? What's the alternative? Where's the respected opposition? In other words, if the mediocrity is telling us Trump's no good, there's no legal basis to get rid of him, no popular basis. He hasn't failed. He's done quite well. But clearly there's an alternative. What's the alternative? Who are the leaders that are going to emerge? Who? Joe Biden? They'll put you all back in chains? John Brennan, the corrupt CIA director, weaponized his agency to spy on Trump? Jim Clapper, known liar, leaking to the media stories to damage the president? Barack Obama of Benghazi, Fast and Furious, IRS, AP, James Rosen, VA scandal fame, that Obama? Of the worst recovery from a recession in modern American history, Obama? The only president in American history not to reach the 3% growth he said wasn't possible with Trump hit the first year? That Obama? He's the respected opposition? Who, Hillary Clinton and Billy Boy? With his $500,000 payment from a Russian bank while his wife was Secretary of State, lording over the Uranium One deal? Oh, the same Russian bank that had analyzed the finances of it? Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, we're supposed to take advice from them? No. Maybe we'll take it from the Hollywood elite show. Surely Kathy Griffin and Bob De Niro know better.
Oh, yeah.
Bob De Niro, I want to punch him in the face. That's my Obama voice, actually. All of a sudden, I don't do voices very well. Bob De Niro, I want to punch him in the face. I don't know Bob De Niro. I want to punch him in the face. You going to do a Bob De Niro? You have a Bob De Niro?
I don't have one. No, I'll work on it.
We have to get, because once I tell you, all Joe needs to do is listen to it once, and he's gold. Oh, who are we supposed to listen to?
Oh, man.
Taylor Swift, dude. I'm not knocking her. She supported a different candidate in Tennessee. The guy lost. I don't understand why we're supposed to listen to them. This is the respected opposition? What? Who else? Any other geniuses out there we're supposed to listen to? Beto O'Rourke? We're supposed to listen to Beto? Why do we have to listen to Beto? What has Beto done? What? No, I'm serious. What has Beto done? How is Beto the anointed one now? Beto, we got to listen to Beto. Bernie Sanders. You got to have a Bernie with his 3 homes? Money's terrible. Money, but capitalists, you all suck. Bernie, you want 3 homes, don't you?
I've worked hard for those homes.
This is the respected opposition? Hey, hard pass, man. Hard pass. No time for these people. And so that's the mediocracy piece in a nutshell, because I want to get to one more quick thing here. There is no respected opposition. And it leaves me with this. There is opposition I do respect. This is an important point. Trump has been engaged back and forth in a bit of a Twitter battle with some military generals. McRaven, McChrystal, obviously what happened with Mattis. McChrystal came out, Stanley McChrystal, and gave an interview and seemed to insinuate that Trump wasn't an honest guy, and I thought took some cheap shots at the president that were unnecessary.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to separate 2 arguments here, and you should too. You can respect these men in their service, and I say that with every ounce of sincerity. I did not serve in the military. I don't know what these men have been through. Clearly, they proceeded through the ranks in the military to honorable, dignified service to their fellow man. And for that, you have my utmost respect. But ladies and gentlemen, when you enter the political arena and you take a shot at the president has every single right as the president of the United States to defend himself. You may disagree with how he does it. You may disagree with the tweets or the tone of it. That is fine. But I'm going to tell you now, and I may get some negative emails, but that's fine. I'm telling you the truth and how I feel. Once you enter the political arena, there's nothing to diminish your service to this country. Don't mistake the two. But the president has every darn right to fight back, and I support his right to do it. He absolutely should fight back. I would do the exact same thing if someone with a history of distinguished military service attacked me, and I thought in what I thought to be a disingenuous manner. So although I don't respect the other opposition, Hillary, Obama, none of them, I don't. These were horrible political leaders. The Hollywood elitists, the actor class, fake academics, remember the Obamacare guy, Jonathan whatever, American people are really stupid. That's how we got over on you with Obamacare. I have no respect for them. None. Zero. Don't care. Don't care a bit. But I do respect those generals. I salute you. But I also respect my president. And he has every single right to fight back. All right, folks. Thanks again for tuning in. Please watch The Five. I will be guest hosting The Five. I put it out on my Twitter feed on Fox. I will be in this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Let's boost those ratings. I really appreciate it. It matters a lot when I go on that you all give us some feedback, and I'd love to hear your tweets and emails, how you think I did. I'm sure there will be some spicy debates. You know me. I know Joe will be watching. Always a liberal on the panel. You know, I never like to never sit back and just take it. So make sure you watch The Five. Please set your DVR. This Wednesday, which is Wednesday, today's show, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Check it out, 5 p.m. Eastern time on The Five. Hey, I really enjoyed today's show. I did. I enjoyed your company today. Yeah. You too, Joe. Yeah, this was one of my favorite shows, I got to tell you, I've done in months. Yeah. And please read that Victor Davis Hanson piece up at my website. It is tremendous. It's worth your time. Screw the mediocrity. Be back tomorrow. See ya.
You just heard the Dan Bongino Show. Get more of Dan online anytime at conservativereview.com. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud. And follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 at DBongino.
Our exhausted American mediocracy. The unlikely 2016 election of Donald Trump, the first president without either prior political or military office, was a repudiation of the American aristocracy, by rule of the best. I mean, the ancien regime was no longer understood to suggest wealth and birth alone, but instead envisioned itself as a supposed national meritocracy of those with proper degrees, and long service in the top hierarchies of government, media, blue-chip law firms, Wall Street, high-tech, and academia. The 2016 election and refutation of the ruling class did not signal that those without such educations and qualifications were de facto better suited to direct the country. Instead, the lesson was that the past record of governance and the current stature of our assumed best and brightest certainly did not justify their reputations or authority, much less their outsized self-regard. In short, instead of being a meritocracy, they amount to a mediocrity, neither great nor awful, but mostly mediocre. This mediocrity is akin to late 4th century BC. Athenian politicians, the last generation of the Roman Republic, the late 18th century French aristocracy, or the British bipartisan elite of the mid-1930s, their reputations relying on the greater wisdom and accomplishment of an earlier generation. While they remain convinced that their own credentials and titles are synonymous with achievement, and clueless about radical political, economic, military, and social upheavals right under their noses. Remember the new normal? Our economic czars had simply decided anemic economic growth was the best Americans could expect and that 3% annualized GDP growth was out of the realm of possibility. Big government incompetence combined with Wall Street buccaneerism had almost melted down the economy in 2008. Recent presidents had doubled the debt, twice. Few could explain how recent agreements such as the Paris Climate Accord or Iran deal could ever have achieved their stated aims, much less were in America's interest. War planners had not translated interventions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya into strategic advantage, much less lasting victory. And never offered reasons to be in such places that appealed to half the country. Most elites had assumed the deindustrialized red state interior was doomed to a sort of preordained and irreversible decline, much of it supposedly self-induced. In more candid moments, elites jested that red state losers might be better replaced by new immigrants, both legal and illegal. Our ruling classes either could not or would not defend American traditions and civilization in our colleges, in our government, and in our popular culture. and they were increasingly accepting of the globalist consensus that America had a flawed past requiring some sort of reparatory future. Our leadership accepted a world in which America's misdemeanors were the source of global outrage, while China's felonies were largely exempt from criticism. China's global hegemony was seen as assumed and fated. Efforts to derail it were near inane or retrograde. Most Americans figured that those who lectured them on television, in op-eds, and throughout popular culture about guns, open borders, green mandates, fossil fuels, and the public schools, had the money, desire, and clout to live in desirable neighborhoods, sometimes behind walls, with ample taste for fine cars, jet trips, and private academies for their children. Earned hypocrisies? The charge of hypocrisy against the elite was considered juvenile, given that exemptions were needed for the ruling class to serve us all the better. How could Al Gore save us from our carbon emissions without his private jet? How could Nancy Pelosi craft drastic climate change legislation without flying to a Kona resort over the holidays? How could Eric Holder stop prejudice without a jet junket to the Belmont Stakes with his kids? How could our Malibu elite nobly sermonize about their loyal gardeners and dutiful maids without walled estates? How could Silicon Valley wizards pontificate about the evils of charter schools and the need for teacher unions, without private academies for their own? And how exactly could the heads of our intelligence agencies and Justice Department officials track down the crimes of Donald Trump without committing greater ones themselves? Much of the Trump agenda, although nominally embraced by the Republican Party after the July 2016 convention, was largely crafted in antithesis to the bipartisan status quo that either could not or would not end illegal immigration, secure the border, call China out on warping world trade, seek greater reciprocity with allies, curtail optional military interventions, massively deregulate, expand fossil fuel production, and return the federal judiciary to a constitutional and constructionist framework. If such a non-traditional agenda had been advanced by an acceptable outsider or billionaire such as Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, or Michael Bloomberg, it would have been seen as eccentric but nevertheless not blasphemous. However, Donald Trump advertised himself as a renegade whose own notorious apostasy was inseparable from his message, and who felt no allegiance to the political protocols and customs that had prepped past presidents. Trump's often crude demeanor at times seemed to suggest that he was not just interested in revoking the results of status quo policymaking, but the very premises of the status quo itself. It is easy to suggest that much of the unprecedented hatred shown Trump is the poisoned fruit of his alleged toxic persona. And yet it is hard to calibrate whether any president has faced, from the moment of his election, the level of venom shown Trump by both political parties and by the elite media, and the centers of progressivism on Wall Street, in Hollywood, Silicon Valley, Washington, and New York. A country that once banned for life a clown from a state fair for wearing in puerile fashion a Barack Obama mask now ritually talks of impeaching, committing to an institution, overthrowing, or beating, burning, decapitating, blowing up, and shooting the elected president. Certainly, we have never seen anything like the constant anti-Trump media hatred, the efforts since the election to remove Trump, in slow-motion coup style, by seeking to warp the Electoral College, to invoke the 25th Amendment and the Emoluments Clause, to unleash special counsel Robert Mueller with an unlimited budget, a toadyish media, a team of partisan lawyers and investigators, and prior help from the top echelons at the Obama Department of Justice, the FBI, the National Security Council, and the CIA. The argument of these elites and their institutions has been not just that Trump is incompetent or inexperienced, but that he is corrupt, perverse, treasonous, criminally minded, and to such a degree that the results of the 2016 should be overturned before the 2020 election. And such an end to Trump's elected governance is justified not merely by his toxic person, but also by the racist, sexist, nativist, xenophobic Americans, the counterfeit half of the country. Who elected him? A case against Trump? If these arguments of the American aristocracy were valid, we would have to accept 3 arguments of the best and brightest. 1. There is a clear moral, legal and popular prerogative to remove Trump. Yet for all the efforts of the professional politicians, the lockstep media, and the elite academic, legal, and financial communities, there is neither a rational nor legal basis to remove Trump. Instead, he enjoys about the general level of support as did many past presidents at this juncture in their administrations. He has survived his first midterm in better fashion than did either Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, who were both later easily re-elected. No one has yet argued that the tenures of John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, or Bill Clinton, still enshrined in the progressive pantheon, were marked by less crudity. The record of the Department of Veterans Affairs, Environmental Protection Agency, General Services Administration, IRS, CIA, and FBI between January 2009 and January 2017 does not qualify. It's unlikely Trump will be convicted of any crimes as outlined by the Mueller collusion investigation. It is more likely he will prove to be the most investigated, probed, and audited president in history. And even more likely, top officials at the Justice Department, CIA, and FBI will be facing eventual legal exposure for unethical and illegal efforts to damage the Trump candidacy, transition, and presidency. 2. Trump has failed. For all the perceived chaos and disorder in the Trump administration, it certainly has so far achieved a stronger economic record than did his predecessors, whether adjudicated by GDP growth, unemployment, energy production, or deregulation. Even a shaky stock market is still much higher than it was when Trump took office. Likewise, abroad, for all Trump's supposed unpopularity, privately most Americans and many so-called experts agree that the Iran deal was fatally flawed, the Paris Accord was a charade. The Palestinian problem was ossified, a radically new policy toward China was overdue, the Pentagon needed to be recalibrated. And old American partnerships were in dire need of recalibration from NATO to NAFTA. 3. There is a logical and systematic antithesis to Trumpism. If so, will either primary or general election candidates run on open borders being preferable to secure ones? Eliminating ICE is better than maintaining it? Defense cuts are necessary? Far more gun control? Medicare for all? There is too much American natural gas and oil production? The economy would be better off with higher unemployment and slower growth. Food stamps need to be increased, not reduced, by over 3 million recipients? We are too harsh on Iran and too accommodating of Israel? Taxes are too low, government too small, and entitlements too few. Did Trump appoint too many unqualified strict constructionist judges? Were John Bolton and Mike Pompeo incompetent? Whom are we to trust? As we look to our celebrities, billionaires, intellectuals and senior statesmen, a sort of American pantheon, do we to find sources of reassurance in Hollywood? Perhaps in the statements and behavior of the last 2 years of Cher, Barbra Streisand, Robert De Niro, Johnny Depp, or Madonna? Do the Oscars, Tonys, and Emmys showcase the expertise, competence, and professionalism of our entertainers? Do the recent statements of the elite marginalized, a LeBron James, Alice Walker, or Tamika Mallory, remind us to reset our ethical bearings? Or do they instead suggest that intersectionality can at times exempt, rather than serve as an impediment to, antisemitism? Has Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shown us superior erudition and common sense? Perhaps Harvard, now facing allegations that it systematically discriminated on the basis of race, can reassure us of progressive values in these tough times? Can its first Native American professor Elizabeth Warren help us endure Trump? Or maybe Google, Facebook and Twitter can show us the way to protect our civil liberties, free expression, and nonpartisanship. Do the heads of our major entertainment and news organizations, a Harvey Weinstein and Les Moonves, offer sources of refuge in these supposedly dark Trump years? Have trusted journals like the New Republic or Der Spiegel been reliable beacons of truth? Perhaps we can look to the elite of the media, to the careers of Dan Rather, Brian Williams, Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, or Mark Halperin, or stellar writers such as Leon Wieselta, Glenn Thrush, or Garrison Keillor to help us recover our moral bearings. Could a wide array of our best intellectuals, politicians, and activists help find our way home in the age of Trump, perhaps truth-tellers such as Doris Kearns Goodwin, Al Franken, or Dianne Feinstein? Could not Joe Biden weigh in on the evils of plagiarism, Cory Booker cite the dangers of fabulism, Harry Reid warn of racial stereotyping? Or Kamala Harris on the perils of religious bigotry? Maybe the elites of government will be our touchstones. Trump critic, James Comey, the director of the FBI, has told Congress on 245 occasions during a single appearance that he does not know or cannot remember the answers when asked questions. The cable television critic and former director of national intelligence James Clapper had lied under oath to Congress and fabulously claimed that the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt was largely secular. John Brennan, another cable television consultant and the former CIA head, has trumped Clapper by lying twice to Congress. Brennan also claimed that jihad was little more than a personal introspective religious journey. Are these our watchtowers of sobriety in these dark times? Both Hillary and Bill Clinton, by education, careers, and service, are advertisements of the ruling class. Yet, she was the godmother of the disastrous Libyan incursion, knee-deep in scandal from Cattlegate to Benghazi to Uranium One, and hired a foreign national during the 2016 election to find dirt on her political opponent through the paid services of foreign sources. Bill was impeached and somehow ended up worth well over $100 million, largely by selling influence on the premise he and his spouse would one day be back in the White House. The Clinton Foundation is synonymous with corruption. So do the most acerbic critics of Trump and iconic members of our aristocracy inspire confidence? Former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, to take just one recent example of a prominent critic in the news, lied repeatedly about the Benghazi attacks. About the Bowie-Bergdahl swap, the army deserter served, she said, with honor and distinction. About the sordid details of buying back hostages central to the Iran deal, and we were very specific about the need not to link their fate to that of the negotiations. About the elimination of weapons of mass destruction in Syria, we were able to get the Syrian government to voluntarily and verifiably give up its chemical weapons stockpile, and about the unmasking of names surveilled through FISA court warrants. I know nothing about this. The point of this tour of our elite is not to excuse Trump's often retaliatory crassness or bombast, but to remind us that our self-righteous anti- and pre-Trump aristocracy was so often a mediocracy. It had assumed status and privilege largely on suspect criteria. Its record abroad and at home inspired little confidence. Doing mostly the opposite of what elite conventional wisdom advocated since January 2017 has made the nation stronger, not weaker. Strangest of all, the elite's furious venom directed at Trump, couched in ethical pretense, has had the odd effect to remind the American people how unethical and incompetent these people were, are, and likely will continue to be. Content created by the Center for American Greatness. About the author, Victor Davis Hanson. Victor Davis Hanson is an American military historian, columnist, former classics professor, and scholar of ancient warfare. He was a professor of classics at California State University, Fresno, and is currently the Martin and Illie Anderson Senior Fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. He has been a visiting professor at Hillsdale College since 2004. Hanson was awarded the National Humanities Medal in 2007 by President George W. Bush. Hanson is also a farmer, growing raisin grapes on a family farm in Selma, California, and a critic of social trends related to farming and agrarianism. He is the author most recently of The Second World Wars, How the First Global Conflict Was Fought and Won.